everyone, this is Marika and welcome back to another session on guidance and counseling. So we've completed what is guidance and we've completed counseling and the process of counseling. We've seen different topics under guidance and counseling. Today we are going to discuss a small topic under guidance and counseling, that is managing disciplinary problems. So before we move on to management of disciplinary problems, let us briefly see what is discipline. So discipline is a common word. It is a familiar word. So what is discipline? Discipline, it is a practice in which we train people to obey certain rules or code of behavior. Discipline is a certain training that is provided to individuals, that is provided to people so that they follow a certain code of behavior or that they obey a certain rule that is given to them. So the word discipline has been derived from a Latin word discipline, which means teaching, learning, and growing. So we all know discipline allows an individual to have a certain control over another individual. We see this discipline usually followed in certain institution, in certain organization. So in order to have control over people around, discipline is usually followed. Now, what is the primary goal of having or following discipline? So the primary goal of discipline is to help the students or the employees of a certain organization to follow certain code of behavior, a particular way of behaving. Now, let us see what is the definition of discipline. So, discipline can be defined as any training or molding of character and mind to bring about desired behavior. So, what is discipline? Discipline is the process of providing training or molding of a certain individual. So what do we train them for? We train their character and their mind so that we can bring about desired behavior, the expected behavior. So discipline is a certain form of molding that is done in a character of a person, or it is done to change the mindset of a person so that the person behaves in a certain expected manner. Next, we have advantages of discipline. So why do we need discipline in organization, at our home, or in any organization that we study? So good discipline will promote individual growth. So if a person is disciplined, the person will be able to achieve individual growth. In any working environment, if the employees follow a certain discipline, if there is discipline within the employees, it helps them to avoid any kind of distraction and focus on their work and work effectively. Discipline provides a pattern of expected behavior and performance. Through discipline, employees or the students of an organization or the member of any group comes to know what kind of behavior is expected from them or what kind of performance they must be giving to the organization. So it provides a pattern of expected behavior as well as performance. Next, we have discipline helps to improve group performance. So when you work in the team, we have already studied group dynamics, teamwork. We have seen the factors that influence group dynamics. So we've studied about social loafing. So what is social loafing? When you work in group, when there are many members in a group, any individual in the group might exert very less effort in order to achieve the task because the individual knows that the activity is being carried out in group and the activity and the goal will be ultimately achieved even though the individual does not put on his full effort. So that is social loafing. We've seen that social loafing is very common in group or teamwork. But if there is a proper discipline followed within the organization by the team members of the organization, it will help to promote or improve group performance as well. Next, we have discipline allows the kids to set and achieve goal better. There's certain discipline that is followed by kids. It will help them and also achieve proper goals. Okay, better goals. And last advantage of discipline is discipline helps you develop a positive outlook. So discipline will also help an individual to develop a positive outlook towards the environment, towards the surrounding, and towards things that are taking place in his environment. Now, let us move on to the aims of discipline. What are the aims of discipline? First one is to develop among employees the spirit of tolerance and a desire to make adjustments. So it helps. The main aim of discipline is to make sure that the employees develop a certain level of tolerance and also a desire to make adjustments. So as I said, every organization will have a certain set of discipline followed. It is different from one organization to another organization. It depends on the need and the type of organization. So through discipline, the organization helps the employee to develop tolerance. Everything does not go according to one's wish. There's a certain pattern of behavior that you are expected to follow. So it will help an individual to develop a tolerance, and also it will become easier for the individual to make adjustment in any kind of situation if a proper discipline is imposed or if a proper discipline is followed. The second aim of discipline is to give and seek certain responsibilities and direction. So through proper discipline, the employees working in the organization or the students of the institution, they are given what they should be done, what is expected from them. So the responsibilities that they are to be carried out is made clear through discipline. Next aim is to increase the work efficiency and to keep the morale of the employees high. So let us see how discipline helps in work efficiency and how it helps to keep up the morale of an individual employee in an organization. Now, as I said, if a proper discipline is followed in any organization, it will help the employees, it will help the people to avoid any kind of distraction and focus on their work. It will help them set their goals and achieve their goals better. So here what happens, there is the supervisor. In any given organization, there will be a supervisor who looks after the discipline of each and every employee working in the organization. So the supervisor must not favor the person who he likes and must not discriminate to the other individual who he does not like. Which means if there are two different employees, one is someone who the supervisor actually likes and the other is the employee whom the supervisor does not like. Here, the supervisor must not see that I like this particular person, so if the person is not following a certain discipline, that person will be excused. Or if the individual whom I do not like must be severely punished if not following the discipline within the organization. There must be equality between all the employees working in the organization. So when there's even-handed discipline that is followed in any kind of organization by the supervisor, which means when there's no discrimination done between the favored employees and less favored employees, it protects the organization from charges of discrimination, and it will help to keep the morale of each and every individual high because it is a disciplinary act of the organization and it is to be followed by each and every individual, and there is no discrimination in our organization by the supervisor. So if there is anyone who's not following a certain disciplinary action, punishment are given. There are penalties for that. Each and every employees who do not follow disciplinary action must pay the consequences. So when there are written rules and standard punishment for the overall organization, it will help to keep the employees at a same level without any discrimination, and it will hold every individual and every employee at the same standard within the organization. So these are the aims of discipline. Let us move on to the principles of discipline. The first principle is discipline should be administered promptly, thoughtfully, and consistently. It is not that for a certain period a particular discipline is followed in an organization, in an institution. Later on, the students or the employees can do whatever they want. No. Discipline is a continuous process. Any written rules of an organization must be followed by the employees and the students throughout. So, discipline must be administered promptly as well as consistently. Next principle says that discipline is to be warranted in cases where the consequences to the employees or to the students are serious and long term. So, discipline is to be made mandatory and it is to be followed by everyone within the organization. Either it is a working environment and it's to be followed by the employees, or it is an educational institute and it's to be followed by students and faculties of the institution. So there are only two principles of discipline. The first one is it must be administered promptly and it must be thoughtful and continuously administered. It must be consistent. The second principle says that discipline is to be made mandatory and is to be followed by each and every employee or the students of an institution where the consequences of disciplinary actions are serious and long term for the employees or the students. We've seen what is discipline. We have seen what are the aims of discipline, what are the principles, and what are the advantages of discipline. Let us now see how can we manage disciplinary problems. So when I'm talking about disciplinary problems are faced worldwide. So let us see what are the common disciplinary problems, especially in India, in educational institutions. So the common disciplinary problems seen in India are absenteeism, non-submission of assignment or late submission, disturbing the classroom atmosphere, damaging or harming institutional property, picking quarrels, using mobile phone in classrooms, etc. So these are the basic disciplinary problems that we see in an Indian educational institute. The student is absent to the class, the student does not submit assignment, the student submits the assignment on last moment or late submission of assignment. The students creates an atmosphere in the classroom which is disturbing for the teacher to take class. The student uses phones in the classroom, harming and damaging institutional property. This is not our property, this belongs to school. So damaging those property which belongs to your college or your schools. All these are common disciplinary problems that we have seen in Indian educational institutions. Reports says that disciplinary problems in India have been continuously increasing, not just in schools but in colleges and universities as well. According to Indian Education Commission, briefly, there have been many ugly strikes without any justifications. So strikes has been done by students of schools, colleges and universities for no reason. There are no justifications of why those strikes were held. So because of these strikes, it leads to violence, walk out of the classroom or examination halls. Indian Education Commission says that there have been many ugly strikes which has lead to violence, which has lead to students walking out of the classrooms and examination halls. And the reason for those strikes are also not known. The strikes were held without any justification, without any cause. Not just violence and not just moving out of the classroom or examination hall, it is also seen that burning of school buses and houses have also been encountered. So reports of indefinite closures of schools and colleges and universities are coming from all different states within our country. This was a report that was given by Indian Education Commission. Because of the strikes that were held for no reason, there were many violences that was created. Many houses and school buses were burned down. Many cinema halls were also burned down. And it is not just from a particular state, but it is from all over our country. So now let us see what are the strategies of managing those disciplinary problems in educational institutions. First, let us also see why disciplinary problem arises. So there are several factors because of which disciplinary problems may arise, which could be complex education system, incompetence of teacher in handling students within the institution, students' personal as well as professional stress, lack of adequate co-curricular and extracurricular activities within the organization, inappropriate selection and use of disciplinary actions by the organization, neglecting the importance of positive reinforcement, poor relationship between the student and a teacher, inadequate contact between the parent, student and teachers, and finally lack of guidance and counseling within the organization among the students. So these are the several factors that may lead to certain disciplinary problems in educational institutions in India. So let us see what are the strategies that can be used in management or prevention of disciplinary problems. The first one is appropriate training of faculties and staff of the institution. So we have seen that a poor relation between a student and a teacher also creates certain disciplinary problems. And also we've seen that incompetency of the teacher to handle students within the institution may also be the cause of certain disciplinary problems. So to make sure all those problems are avoided, adequate training to the faculties and the staffs must be provided within each and every organization. So we can provide training to the principals, to the faculties and every other staff within the organization on how to handle disciplinary problems within the organization. So in an organization, there are different types of students who have different personality, different thought process. So the behavior of the individual will also be different from one individual to another. Since there are many different students, one or the other student will have certain problem in following the rules and regulations of an organization or to maintain the standard given discipline. So what happens? The student might show disciplinary problems. The faculties, the principals and the staff must be adequately trained on how to manage the disciplinary problems in students. Next, we have adequate practice of co-curricular and extracurricular activities. In an organization, only studies that are carried out throughout the year. There are no extracurricular activities for the students. What happens? The students get bored. So because of the boredom, the students might not follow the discipline that an organization wants them to follow because it is for a long period of time. So it is observed that intense curricular activities become a source of boredom for the students and it becomes stressful for the students. So this boredom and stress may trigger an episode of indiscipline in the students. So as I said, the students are following a certain set of rules every time. For any organization to run, the organization must make sure that incorporation of co-curricular and extracurricular activities in routine academic schedule is made. So the organization must not only focus on intense curricular activities, but extracurricular activities are also to be incorporated in the routine academic sessions. Why do we have to do that? So that we can minimize the boredom of the students and also academic activities could be made interesting. So now why do we have to incorporate extracurricular activities with intense curricular activities? So that we can reduce the boredom of the students and also academic is made more interesting. Third one, we have appropriate standard and use of discipline. So any organization must follow a disciplinary standard which the students, the faculties and the members of the organization are expected to follow. But those rules and regulations, those standards are to be selected properly and appropriate ones that can be followed only must be selected. So while we select the disciplinary standard within the organization, we must follow a certain guideline. Let us see what are those guidelines. So the first one says that we have to give simplified 3 or 4 classroom rules to the students. Now, what should be these rules? These rules must be broad enough to cover the spectrum of appropriate behavior expected from them. Instead of giving 100 rules for the students to follow, instead of giving so many rules for the students to follow, only 3 to 4 broad rules, but those rules must cover all the aspect of appropriate behavior that is to be followed. Next one is to determine the positive and the negative consequences of disciplinary action. Now, how do disciplinary standards based on the inputs that are received from the teachers, parents, and students? So, as I said, appropriate disciplinary standards must be selected for any given organization. From the feedback that we receive from the parents, from the students, as well as the teacher, it must be made sure that we analyze both the positive and negative consequences of the disciplinary standards of the organization. In order to make sure that the students are well aware about the disciplinary standards of the institution, there must be a review of disciplinary plan with the classroom for a period of time once the students are admitted to the institution. After the students have done the admission with the entire classroom, a teacher can go and review the disciplinary plan of the organization so that the students become aware about what is expected from them, how they are supposed to behave, what are the disciplinary standards of the particular organization. Next one is to obtain approval from parents about the disciplinary standards. Parents also must know what is the discipline that is followed in the organization and what their kids are supposed to follow within the organization. So we have to obtain written approval from the parents of the students. So when the parents come for admission, either we can meet parents individually and explain about the disciplinary problems, or we can meet the parents collectively and explain about the disciplinary standards of the organization. Next one is to implement the discipline plan and be consistent. We have to administer the discipline promptly and we have to be consistent. So once the students are admitted to the organization, to the institution, the teacher has to review the disciplinary plan with the students for a period of time and make sure that the students are aware about the disciplinary plan. Now, immediately after the students have taken admission, the discipline must be administrated. That means the discipline must be followed by all those students and the discipline must be followed consistently. As I've said, there should be no gap or no break, no consideration given for breaking the discipline within the organization. And the last one is to maintain a conducive learning environment within the organization. So we have to maintain a good learning environment, a positive learning environment for the students within the institution. There should be no discrimination. If the students are showing any kind of negative discipline or if there's any kind of disciplinary problems, the students should know the punishment that the students might get when they show any kind of problems, when they display any kind of resistive behavior towards following certain disciplinary standards. Also, the student must be aware about the positive reinforcement of following the disciplinary standards within the organization. So these are the various guidelines that are to be followed while implementing the disciplinary standards within the organization. Next one, we have use, reward, and punishment. So just now I have said, when the student displays any kind of resistive behavior, if the student is not following certain behavior, there are punishments that are given to students. But in many of the institutions, positive reinforcement is absent, which means the students, if they show any kind of negative behavior, they are punished, but they are not rewarded for the good behavior, for following their discipline. Often only negative consequences are followed by educational institutions, and there is no display of consequences of positive behavior. So now in this scenario, what is happening? There's overemphasis on negative consequences. There is no focus on the consequences of positive behavior. This also can create a certain kind of feeling within the student in which they might not follow the classroom discipline. Even if I'm being good, there is no reward for me. What is the point of me being a good student following a discipline? Because there is nothing for displaying a positive behavior. So there should be a balance between the positive reinforcement, use of reward, and use of punishment to maintain a certain discipline within the organization. Creating this balance will help the students attract towards positive behavior, and the students will refrain from negative behavior. Next, we have promoting better teacher-student relationship. So in the causes of disciplinary problem, we have seen that poor relation between the teacher and student also causes disciplinary problems. Now, when there is a close and intimate relationship between a teacher and the students of the class, what happens? It becomes easier for the teacher to identify any kind of disciplinary problems and manage those disciplinary problems at the earliest. Next, we have cultivation of moral, ethical, and spiritual values. Values are the foundation of discipline. We learn from our home certain values and we follow that throughout our life. So these values, spiritual values, cultural values, ethical values, they guide a person on the right path. If you are taught discipline from your home, if you know what is to be done, what is wrong, what is right, it helps the individual to move along the right path throughout their life. And so it will prevent from causing any kind of indisciplinary actions. There must be enough significance given to ethical, moral, and spiritual values. It will help the students follow the right path and avoid indiscipline. Next, we have close student, parent, and teacher relationship. So parents are first teachers and teachers are second parents. We learn various things from our parents and various things from our teachers as well. So both parents as well as teachers have significant influence on anybody's life, on any individual's life. The teacher must communicate regularly with the students as well as the parents of the student about the progress of the student. When there is interaction between the teacher, parents, and the student about the progress or about the problems that are faced by the students, it helps them come out of the problem easier. It helps them to identify any kind of disciplinary problem at the earliest stage. So when there's a close loop of contact between a parent, a teacher, and a student, it helps to identify and manage the disciplinary problems at the earliest. And the last, we have effective use of guidance and counseling. So we have seen what is guidance, what is counseling, and how it helps the student overcome a problem that may be related to his studies, academics, or his personal life. So effective use of guidance and counseling must be done by any educational institution in order to make sure that the disciplinary problems, whichever is seen within the students, can be managed. Through guidance and counseling services, students will be able to resolve the problems that they might face. So through proper guidance and counseling, we will be able to understand if the students are having any kind of problems and how those problems can be minimized or how those problems can be prevented. So proper use of guidance and counseling will help us deal with disciplinary problems in the institution. So this brings us to the end of strategies to manage disciplinary problems. Next, we have role of administrator. What is the role of a individual or a leader in disciplinary management? So to conclude, today we have seen what is discipline, what are the different advantages of discipline, what are the different aims and principles of discipline, and what are the strategies to improve disciplinary problems in educational institutions. I hope the class was helpful and I'll see you all in the next session. Thank you.